Good afternoon, folks. This is David from FormBet, and I wanted to talk through a few systems I'm going to be building through for the flat season, which starts on the 23rd of March 2024 at Doncaster, Lincoln Handicap Day. But I'm actually going to start working on class non-handicaps first, and I'll look at non-handicap races and looking at trainer, jockey, sire, dam, sire, and then I'll work on the handicap-based systems. It'll obviously take a while for all these systems to bed in and gather enough data, maybe 1 or 2 months initially. Longer term, it probably takes a year worth of data at least to develop these kind of systems, but it will give us something to work with for the flat season. So as you can see, I've got a load of jump systems in here. The Cheltenham ones will be pared down quite a bit after I've done some analysis on those next week. I've already done some flat jockey claimers and flat handicap trainer claimers. There's a previous YouTube video you can look at for those. But for this exercise, I'm going to start looking at last 5 years, and I'm actually going to include Irish races in this initially because I just want to see if there's any angles there. There's obviously a lot of class racing on the flat in Ireland, and Aidan O'Brien and a few others are based there, so I think it's worthwhile leaving those in for now. The major race class, I'm going to just limit to Group 1 and Group 2. I think there's a big gap, or there used to be, between Group 2 and Group 3 and listed. So I'm just focusing on Group 1, Group 2, because that's the races that the top trainers want to win. I'm then obviously going to say non-handicaps, which they probably will be anyway. And then I will just basically select the trainer tab and generate a report. So this will be all the trainers that have had Group 1 and Group 2 runners over the last 5 years in the UK and Ireland. And one thing I didn't do is I didn't select the race code to be flat turf, because I don't want Mullins having runners on the flat like he does over the jumps. So as we can see, it's sorted by wins. Aidan O'Brien, clearly a bit of a master, but look how many runners he has compared to the rest. This is probably because sometimes he doesn't really know which of his is the best in a race. And also he runs a lot of pacemakers and things like just to make up the numbers really, and also to ensure pace for his primary candidates, because most of his winners will be in the front end of the market. That's why he has so many entries in the Derby. Sometimes he's not really sure if one will produce an improved performance stepping up to 1.5 miles. That's why you often get a few of his that are well bred, overpriced, that hit the frame in the Derby. But it's generally just pacemakers, and that's why he's got such a big loss. Then you've got Charlie Appleby, obviously, for Godolphin. You've got John Gosden, who's, I think, training with his wife now, so I'll bandy those two together. Then you've got Andrew Balding, but you can see, after Gosden and Appleby, and forgetting about O'Brien's stat with all his runners, the strike rate starts to drop off a little bit, and you'll start to see the win P&L, apart from anomalies like Charlie Hills. You'll start to see the strike rate drop off. Clive Cox, obviously, he's got decent strike rate, shows a profit. Again, there's some big price winners in there probably. So what I would do from here is then let's just start with Aidan O'Brien. So I will click on him, and then I would just generate a report. And what I want to see with O'Brien is the position of his horses in the market. So if I click on odds rank and generate a report, this will just tell us Aidan O'Brien's favourites. 37% strike rate, second favourites 14, 13. They still lose, obviously, but this is where a lot of his losses will come from, because you can see the strike rate is pitiful. Like I said, he does get decent price winners hitting the frame in some races, but for the sake of this exercise, I'm going to start looking at his top 3 in the market, because that's where the strike rate starts to dip off. So let's go to odds rank and select 1 to 3. Generate that report. And so the other thing I wanted to look at was distance, actually, because I have a suspicion that ruling out 5 furlong, 6 furlong sprints maybe, is probably a wise move. Yeah, I think as you can see, the actual expected is pretty low. He's got 0 from 7 in 5 furlong races, Group 1, Group 2. So for me, I'm going to look at a minimum distance of 7 furlongs for this. And the next thing I would probably look at is the odds range. So if we go to the runner and do the odds rank, the odds, and generate a report, we'll see obviously his really strong odds-on chances are 100%. So when there's real market confidence behind those guys, they generally produce the goods. You're not going to get rich back in them, obviously. But what I'm looking for here is trying to see where it starts to tail off into unprofitable territory. Right, so I would probably say certainly the higher up he's losing 10 points there on 7-2 shots, 6.67. Now let's see what happens if we just reduce that to his first and second favourites. So this is a 25% strike rate. 0.86 and 2.24 are the AEs and impact values. So the strike rate increases, the ROI drop increases. Well, it's less of a loss. And then finally I'd look at his favourites. So 29 minus 26 ROI. So yeah, the strike rate jumps to 39% and minus 19% ROI. So that's quite an impressive figure. And I think this, like 13-8 and 7-4, I think that's a bit of a loser. I tend to ignore the sample size of 1 there, but you can see it's 50%, 10%, 11%. So I would say having a max odds for his favourites in these races at 6-4 is probably quite a good filter to put in there. So I'll put that in there. Generate the report again, and we can see actually he's starting to become a bit profitable, which is, I mean, 4 points profit over a 5-year period isn't really great, but let's have a look at his record in the UK compared to Ireland. Right, so it's a slight loss in Ireland. He has more runners there, obviously, in Group 1, Group 2s. And his record in the UK is actually it goes up to 5.34. So the AE and IV are obviously quite good there. So yeah, I think if you're looking at the filters again, now you can't have a max odds or an odds rank in a report because it will. You don't know what price the horse is going to be, and you don't know if it's going to start favourite. So you would take those out, but for sake of research, you'd leave those in for the moment. So we're looking at flat turf, 7 furlongs. It hasn't, for some reason, it hasn't displayed the major race classes in there. I don't know why. I'll speak to Matt about that. Yeah, I think what this is telling us is you're going to get a 61.5% strike rate just backing Aidan O'Brien favourites in Group 1, Group 2 races at 6-4 or less. So in itself, that's not a system you would want to be following to turn profits, but what it is indicating is that if Aidan O'Brien does have a favourite that's 6-4 or less in Group 1 and Group 2 races, you're going to need a pretty strong reason to back something against one of his, because they're only going to win 38.5% of the time. So you don't really want to be taking short odds against an Aidan O'Brien shorty favourite in those races. And so I'm going to leave Ireland, UK and Ireland in there, and I think it would be good just to have this as a not a system to follow as such, but one that maybe indicates, let's just see that I put his odds rank to 1. Yeah, okay, so yeah, I would probably save that as a system called, let's see, flat, group 1, group 2, Aidan O'Brien, or just put A or B. Well, I know who that is, yeah. Less than 6-4 favourite. So that's pretty self-explanatory, and I'll add that in as an angle. Before I actually add that as an angle though, I'll take out the odds rank, obviously, and I'll take out the minimum odds. And I'll just update those settings. So yeah, you'd have to manually look at which of his horses are going to start favourite and which are 6-4 or less, close to the off. But it's a good angle to say this is a very strong favourite for Aidan O'Brien in this particular race at these odds. So you'd need a reason to follow any other kind of a system in a race like that. And speaking of which, let's just have a look at reset everything. And if we go back to other filters, I want to find out, so we'll stick with UK and Ireland for now. Obviously O'Brien is based in Ireland, so this may well involve taking Ireland out of this particular system I'm thinking about. Flat turf, major race class, group 1 and group 2. Distance, I'm going to stick with that. Well, actually, let's just have a quick look to see if my theory is correct. Odds rank 1, and let's look at the distance of the race. So favourites in class group 1, group 2 races on the flat. Yeah, maybe I'll leave 5 furlong and 6 furlong races in there for now. I'm not sure. I always feel that there's a bit of an issue with consistency and luck at the start and things like that in sprints, but maybe I'll just leave that for now. It could be a bias I have. So I want to look at non-handicaps, obviously, and I want to look at, let's just change the odds rank for now. Okay, so I'm looking at the top 3 to start with, and I want to look at the odds range of the favourites in these races. So I'll put the odds rank back to 1. So what I'm looking for here is, as you can see, you're gonna, let's look at the win P&L. So you're making small amounts of money, but you're losing more on odds on shots. When does it really start to hurt is the question. I think we can see here there's quite a few losses. There's some wins here, but they don't really compensate for these bigger losses. And I would say probably, yeah, that's losing 352, that's losing 235, you get 236 back there, you lose that, you lose 372, you lose evens. It's only really when you get to 11 to 10, I would say that's got to be an anomaly at 13 to 8 and 7 to 4, but for the sake of this exercise, I'm going to put in minimum odds of, say, 11 to 10. And you'll see the strike rate drop. Now, I'll then probably look at the distance again, because I'm still not comfortable having 5 and 6 furlong sprints in there. Yeah, so 11 to 10 plus, there's a bit of a difference in strike rate there. That's the biggest losing ROI. The AE is much lower than everything else, so I'm gonna go with the minimum distance of 6 furlongs for this system. See, the strike rate goes up. We're losing 14%. We're losing 120 points. Now, what I want to do here is look at the trainers, except probably O'Brien, although we can just leave him in there for now. Okay, so what filters are we looking at here? We're looking at UK and Ireland, flat turf, from 6 furlongs, non-handicaps, minimum odds of 11 to 10, and it's a favourite. I'll maybe just put that to first and second favourites. So Charlie Appleby 30%, Andrew Balding 32%, Simon Crisford 55%, Andre Fabra, see Gosden 33.26. So yeah, that's quite impressive. Now, looking at the filters, I've got first and second favourites at minimum odds of 11 to 10. Can we find a list of profitable trainers? The first thing I would do is I'd go to those that don't have any wins. I'd sort by wins, and I'd add in every single guy that has won. Apologies for my clicky mouse. And so these are all the guys that have won Group 1, Group 2 races. Then we start to get down to the small sample size guys. There's not that many of them, so I'll probably just add them in anyway. So what we're doing here is we're developing a system for trainers with right, okay. So if we generate the report now, we'll see the strike rate goes up. But now, although these guys have got winners, some of their strike rates are really low, like Willie Haggis, for example. That's quite surprising, 9.52 strike rate. Carl Burke, 12.5. So really what I would do is I would go through and look at those that are losing the most. So we can see here Aidan O'Brien. Because I've just put that Aidan O'Brien favourite system in, I would remove him from this particular system, because he's going to show up on the other one. I don't really want him showing up on this one as well. So Willie Haggis I would remove, Richard Hannon, Carl Burke. So yeah, I think it might be worth leaving some of these guys in for now. Let's have a look at just the favourites. Okay, so these guys haven't had any winning favourites, so I'm going to remove them. Oh, I don't like to remove Dermot Well, but I will. I'll be ruthless. Okay, so I've put it back up to the first two, and sorting it by win P&L. Michael Stout, I'm not sure if he's on the downgrade. I haven't really followed horse racing for a while. I know he was always a guy I used to love to back his horses, but must be cracking on a bit now. It's obviously 5 years. There's a lot more competition with the likes of O'Brien and stuff. Maybe he's lost a few key sponsors. I have no idea. But yeah, you can see the strike rates are still great. I wouldn't worry too much about that. So the filters we have are flat turf from 6 furlongs. I just want to look at the distance again because I want to make sure that I really want to make sure that I shouldn't be excluding 6 furlong races. Not decent enough strike rate. So yeah, there's a bit of an anomaly there at 11 furlongs, but that's not a big deal. 1 mile contests. Seems to be more runners there at a mile, probably because there's more Group 1, Group 2s at a mile, and they enter them for the multiple entries for the guineas, etc. But yeah, I'm happy with that set of filters. It obviously produces 72 points profit, 13, almost 14% ROI with a near 30% strike rate. Following these trainers, in the second or first or second in the market at 11 to 10 plus. Now, what happens if you have, let's say, Hughie Morrison with a favourite and David Ellsworth with a second favourite? Would you back both? That's a tricky question, and I can see that given us a few issues when there's likely to be some short prices, given you've got the likes of Gosden, Appleby. So I think I'm going to make this a favourite only system just because I want a high strike rate system for the flat. So yeah, I'm going to just make this a favourites system, and we'll see that go up from 29%. Hopefully we'll see the P&L not affected too much. Yeah, so 38%, 50 points profit, 22% ROI. Let's just have another quick look at the trainers. Is there anyone else that we could remove? Not really. I'm pretty happy with that list. Andrew Balding. Not sure about that. Not sure about Burrows either. As we can see, there's some guys here that have only had 1 win. It's small sample sizes, but then you've got the likes of Gosden, who's 33% with his wife, 38% before that. Doesn't make a profit, but still. Oh, I might actually just leave that in there like that. So this is one of the things with systems you often have to fiddle about a bit. I like the ROI, I like the strike rate and that, so I'm going to leave it as a favourite system. So I'm going to add this as an angle. So it's flat Group 1, Group 2, and that will be. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna put that to odd rank 1 and 2. Yeah, I feel more comfortable with that because flat Group 1 or 2 fave or second fave and trainers. Yeah, I'm fairly happy with that. So what this means is that whenever one of these guys has a favourite or a second favourite at minimum odds of 11 to 10, follow that system. Now, what it's also good for is, let's say you have a second favourite for, I don't know, John Gosden, and the favourite is actually an Aidan O'Brien runner who is odds of less than 6-4. Let's say it's odds on shot, because that other system that we put together for Aidan O'Brien has a 64%, was it 64% win strike rate? You probably wouldn't back that Gosden runner if it was 11-10 or higher. So you've got two systems in competition there, but what is the key thing is that this system has a 29% strike rate. It's an interesting one because you've got two opposing systems if you do have O'Brien with a favourite. I've taken the odds out, obviously, but he's gonna be winning those. He's going to be winning those Group 1 and Group 2 races a significant amount of the time. So, yeah, I've taken the odds out, which is why it hasn't changed. But if we do 1 and odds of, what was it, less than 6-4. Yeah, 61% strike rate. But you're not going to get rich backing his runners. So you'd have to have a pretty good reason to oppose his runners. But if it's one of these guys, and the odds are 11-10 or better, then you could probably take a chance depending on other factors, obviously. So I know, say if O'Brien doesn't have a runner and these trainers hit this, then you would perhaps look at that. But they'd have to be first or second favourite. So if Prescott's got a runner and it's like 7th or 8th in the market, you wouldn't be following that. You would only be doing that if it was first or second in the market. So anyway, that's two little systems built around class. And I'll probably have a think about another. Yeah, the class-based systems I would look at in the next videos will be based around sires and dam sires, and then I'll maybe look at jockeys as well. Okay, so yeah, that's just the trainers based favourite approach in Group 1 and Group 2 races. But I'll look at sires and I'll look at dam sires because I want to find some class sires and class dam sires, and then I'll maybe look at things like sires at certain distances. So for sprints, 5 furlong, 6 furlong, mile, which I would do 7 furlongs to 1 mile, 1 furlong, middle distance, which I'll probably have 1 mile 2 to 1 mile, 1 mile 4, 1 mile 5, and then I would have staying from 1 mile 6 up to 2 mile 2 furlongs, and then I'd have something like marathon for 2 miles 3 furlongs, but there's not going to be too many races apart from Queen's Vase and things like that. So that's what I would look at from a breeding perspective for sires and dam sires. And then I'd probably look at a few more. There's any number of systems you can look at in terms of those kind of class races, but I think that would be enough to start with. And then I would sort of start delving into the handicaps, handicap trainers in certain class. So class 1, class 2 handicaps, maybe not class 3. But then I'd look at things like sires in those kind of handicaps as well. And yeah, so there's quite a lot to look at, quite a lot to build, but I'll get them all in place by next weekend. Thanks for watching. Any comments, just drop them below in the video. Appreciate you watching. Any questions, just shout out via here or on Substack, formbet.substack.com, and look forward to doing the next videos. Cheers.